Hey guys, welcome back to Falcon Central Radio, part of the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman, joined by my co-host, Matt Carrolley. And we are joined by a good friend of mine, good friend of Matt, good friend of yours, Alan Strk. You know him from the Falcoholic. You know him from his Wednesday GIF reviews of breaking down the Falcons film. We'll get Alan's thoughts on some of the film from this Colts Week 3 game. We'll get his thoughts on some of this upcoming Week 4 action against the Tennessee Titans. And of course, towards the end of the show, we're going to get you guys to call in on the show and jump in and give your questions and comments about this team and whatnot. And you can just check that out on YouTube in the chat. We'll post the link and you just jump in and be ready to talk Falcons with us. So, Alan, man, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, guys. It's very interesting, this dynamic, man, because we were talking before the show about a lot of baldness, and here I am with the different combinations.
With a great head of hair, right? That we're all
yes, clean shaven and with hair. You got it in the wrong place, Alan.
Just trying to be Thomas Dimitrov as much as possible, even though I know he's currently under pressure, as is the entire Falcons brass.
Absolutely. So let's jump into the show like we always do, talking about any roster moves. We got some moves today. Earlier today, we saw last week that the Falcons elevated their punter on the practice squad, Matt Wiley, to the roster because of the injury to Matt Bosher. They wound up cutting Wiley today. They wind up bringing back John Wetzel, the offensive tackle who they cut last week, to make room for Wiley. They put Keanu Neal on injured reserve with the torn Achilles injury. Replacing him on the roster is Jamal Carter, the strong safety they had on their practice squad, and replacing Carter on the practice squad is the H-back, tight end, fullback Carson Meyer that they picked up formerly, I think, of the Jaguars, that was spent the first week or two on the practice squad. So, Alan, obviously the Keanu Neal injury is a massive one. I guess we'll hold off a little bit on that. We'll get into that a little bit more in just a moment. But, these roster moves, particularly the signing of Jamal Carter, with the Falcons bringing in a couple of veteran guys like TJ McDonald and George Iocla for workouts, and deciding to, keep it in the family, I guess you could say, with the Jamal Carter and Kamal Ishmael and Sherrod Niesman, presumably filling in for Keanu Neal. What are your thoughts on those moves?
Well, they did the exact same thing last year when Neal went down and recorded on. I think we know Dan Quinn, he really doesn't look for outside help unless they're really pressed against the wall. And you could say in this situation, they are kind of pressed against the wall, but that's kind of how they operate. I think Quinn's going to trust his guys, even though, because remember last year, everyone was like, oh, maybe they should bring in Eric Reed. And then Eric Reed went to Carolina. I thought he had played pretty well for the most part. So I don't think it should be much of a surprise, but there are options out there. I think, Aaron, you posted Sunday night, there were the safety options, although including Jordan Richards' name, very, very, very savvy move, I will admit. But seeing Eric Berry, who I don't think could be really relied upon because he's been injured for the past 3 years, and then Iocla and McDonald, I think those are two decent names because safeties don't really get paid anymore. Like Trey Boston didn't get signed to late July, early August, so I'm a little surprised they didn't make a move. But I think we know Dan Quinn, he likes to keep things in house and likes to believe in his philosophy.
Yeah, I think the surprising thing for me was that Quinn's press conference on Monday, he made the claim that they were going to sign someone. So that kind of tells me that McDonald and Iocla workouts didn't go as they had hoped, because I think their expectation was they were going to sign one of those guys, and I don't think Carter was plan A. But as Alan said, Dan Quinn's a prideful guy. He likes to stick with his guys, as we've seen with Vic Beasley sticking with him this year. So we'll see how this works out. As Aaron said, we'll get into it a little bit more later in the show, but I was a little surprised because I did think this time around, with all that's at stake, they were going to bring in someone outside the building, and that happened to not be the case.
Iocla was last in Minnesota, right?
Dallas.
He was in Dallas in the summer. Yeah,
he's been around because I remember when he went to Minnesota and Zimmer didn't really play him. That's when people are like, "Oh, he might be done," because obviously that's Zimmer's guy. So
yeah, he got cut by the Cowboys. I was kind of secretly hoping for Derek Kindred. Used to be with the Browns and was with the Colts this past summer. But I think Jamal Carter's got something, in the world of the Falcons developing a future long-term backup to Keanu Neal that they can trust. I think Carter makes a lot of sense, but I don't think really the goal right now should be, who's going to be Keanu Neal's backup in 2020 when he comes back. I think the goal should be like, who's going to start for this team right now in 2019, until that day arrives. And, Matt and I have been pretty staunchly pro Sherrod Eastman on this podcast for quite some time. So hoping we get to see a little bit more of Sherrod Eastman playing that strong safety role. I thought Kamal Ishmael did some nice things against the run. Thought he did some questionable things in coverage, which is kind of the MO for Kamal Ishmael throughout his career. So we'll have to sort of see how that goes. But a little disappointing to see not the Falcons make a outside addition there, and they had to bring back the great John Wetzel to shore up their offensive line depth because I guess Jamon Brown is dealing with an injury there. So, but on that injury front, Jamon Brown did suffer a hand injury, came into the game, exited the game. Wes Schweitzer stepped in, then came back in, and then came back out of the game, and Schweitzer sort of finished the game. We saw concussions for Ito Smith and Kenyon Barner in that game. So we'll probably get to see the debut of Brian Hill and or Quadri Olson this week. If those guys aren't healthy, Grady Jarrett's dealing with a toe injury, but Dan Quinn indicated that he expects him back at the end of the week. How much you want to put stock in Dan Quinn's injury updates is certainly sketchy, his past there. But obviously the big injury is Keanu Neal, and he tore that Achilles, and he's out for the season. And now that's 2 consecutive years where Keanu Neal has suffered a major injury early in the season. I'm curious, Alan, what are your thoughts on the impact of this injury, and sort of what do you think it sort of means potentially for Keanu Neal's future going forward?
One quick thing: is there any update on Tack McKinley? Because he went down as well.
He did return, I thought, later in the game.
He did.
He did come back, and then he came in, I think, on like the last play for the last drive, but I think he missed most of that series too.
Okay, because I remember Claiborne Beasley, like the primary edge rushers, you saw a lot of Kaminsky in the second half, so that's why I was a little concerned about. But I guess there was really no update.
Yeah, I saw him in for at least one play, and Dan Quinn, no one asked him about it, so maybe they just missed it. But I'm assuming he'll be okay. But I was more curious about Jamon Brown. Did he actually come back in the game and finish it? Because I didn't
finish
it. No,
but he did come back into the game. I think for like a series or two
after injuring the hand. You're saying because he had an injury earlier too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he came back in.
I think on the final drive, it was right before the roughing the passer penalty. I think he got injured. I think he came out again because you saw Schweitzer on that touch on the Julio.
Yeah.
He went to like celebrate Julio. So I was like, why is Schweitzer in the game? But I was like, oh, Brown probably got injured again. But
yeah, Brown came back out.
Yeah, obviously the Keanu Neal injury is devastating. I thought he looked really good against Minnesota. Week 1 was pretty rough. He was kind of sluggish, missed a couple open field tackles. It's just unfortunate. Like now you feel bad for players like this because now they're going to be given the injury prone label when it's like guy tore his ACL, tore his Achilles, like 2 of the worst, most devastating injuries. And now all of a sudden he's injury prone. It hurts to see that. And this guy, 24 years old, rising star, he could pretty much do it all. So just obviously losing that tone setter, the real enforcer in defense, you could just tell. I don't know if you guys saw like Ricardo Allen the interview. He was just devastated. And you could tell because these guys, they're a close bond. And I just know the rapport that they have, and just we want to see those two continue to build themselves up because I think they got one of the best safety combos in the league. I don't think you can see when you assess like the safety duos. I don't think there's many better ones of those two, Ricardo Allen and Keanu. So yeah, it's obviously really a bummer. I think now you have to see. I think just in terms of the run defense, how they're going to adjust because, as you know, he's such a difference maker there. So I guess that's one thing maybe Ishmael could do better, but he definitely doesn't have the range that Neal has.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me is Neal in the run game. And also I think, because Aaron's talked about it quite a bit, is Neal as a man-to-man defender in coverage, on those tight ends and slot receivers and all that. But, yeah, I mean, you hit on most of the big points, Alan. Him as a tone center and just, the sucky human nature of it, having to make that climb already just to get back and now have to do it back-to-back years. You feel for the guy and curious what this means long term. I'm 100% confident Keanu can get back to the level that he was in 2016 when he was a Pro Bowler, or 2017, excuse me. But But I do think you have to have somewhat of a contingency plan. Think about drafting a safety in the later rounds to some extent, just for instances like this, because who knows? Now we're dealing with Kamal Ishmael and Sherrod Niesman again, who, again, you'd like to see Sherrod once again prove to the coaching staff that he can handle this position, but for whatever reason, the coaching staff, refuses to give that to him. So, you got to believe safety is going to be on the needs list in the draft, coming up. But as far as what he's going to bring as a run defender, in those run fits, I think that was one of the big takeaways from the early part of the season. When the Falcons went on that slide last year, was the run defense was gashed, and I think Keanu Neal had a big part to do with that. So, coming into this game against Tennessee, which the big thing you want to key on is Derrick Henry and stopping him. This isn't a great first test for that without having Keanu Neal, but we'll see if Kamal Ishmael is up for the challenge.
Yeah, it can't be a worse difference between, because remember the drastic drop off between Neal and going from Neal to Jordan Richards last year. I don't think it could possibly be any worse. I guess maybe that's one encouraging thing about this, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, Ishmael's fine. I've thrown a lot of slander at Ishmael.
Oh god, Aaron throwing the fine label. That's when you know things are
right.
Like he's fine. I think the good thing is the Falcons, because my main concern is sort of on those third downs when the Falcons like to use their man defense and play cover one, Neal's ability to lock down these tight ends has been an X factor for this defense and been a big reason why they've, had some success in that regard over the years. And you saw last year that was a problem for them. And I just, I don't think Ishmael can do that. And I think Niesman fits a little bit better there. So we'll see if they kind of rotate those guys like they did with Richards last year and Niesman in the second half. The good thing is, outside of this week with like Delaney Walker, you're not necessarily facing a who's who of tight ends for at least a chunk of the season. We kind of got the best tight ends like the Ertzes and the Ebrons out of the way early in the season. But, in the second half of the season when you got Jared Cook, you got Greg Olsen, O.J. Howard's a good tight end, but Bruce Arians refuses to.
How you can give O.J. Howard an eye roll, but not Greg Olsen? Greg Olsen can barely move at this point.
Well, yeah, Greg Olsen can barely move, but when we play the Colts, it is always Keanu Neal's job to, shadow him in those games.
I mean, didn't Ben Watson just a couple years ago shred Kamal Ishmael in coverage? And Ben Watson at that time was like 36, 37. So Olsen probably had that in him as well.
You got George Kittle later in the season, so it's not great. It's not great. Kamal Ishmael. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I will say Neal did a really good job on Zach Ertz, I thought, last weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's probably going to be more Devondre Campbell, I guess. Who
hasn't been great. Yeah.
That's an understatement. I think he's been one of the more disappointing players overall.
I wouldn't disagree at all.
Because remember in 2017, he was looking like a rising star, but he's just so late when it comes to run support, just handling stuff when it comes to coverage. Him and Ishmael, I thought, were responsible for a lot of the short yardage underneath passes that went for 12, 14 yards.
Well, Campbell's terrible in zone coverage, and guess what? The Falcons going to play a lot more zone coverage, so looking forward to that.
Aaron, always optimistic.
Always optimistic. All right. So, any more thoughts on these injuries before we move on and talk a little bit more about this Colts game?
He said Grady's going to be back end of the week, most likely.
That's what he said, but
I'm taking it with a grain of salt at this point.
I mean, judging based on Grady's, facial expressions and stuff on the sideline when they panned him during the game, it didn't look like a serious injury. Like it didn't look like he was like I'll be back next week type of look on his face almost. But
it was a weird injury because I watched it on the game and it just looked like he just kind of pushed off of his foot wrong and then couldn't put weight on it and then came out of the game. So I don't know if it like a sprain or I don't know.
I mean, you worry for turf toe because those can linger and be a nuisance, but I guess we'll see what happens.
It would be nice to have him this week against this Titans offensive line.
Yeah, Jameel Douglas, that would be a great matchup to explore.
He's going to destroy those individuals if you watch Thursday night.
Yeah.
If he's not there, then we got to rely on Jack Crawford, who I think did some positive things last week. kind of woke up for the first time this season. Obviously, did some negative things with those offsides penalties. We got to get that in check. But maybe Jack Crawford is getting back into his 2018 form now that he's starting to settle in. So hopefully we don't need Grady Jarrett. But if Grady Jarrett's limited, if Tack's limited, that's not. We'll get into the Titans game, but that's obviously not great for the Falcons because those are the two most reliable guys that the Falcons have up front at this point in time in terms of rushing the quarterback. So, all right. So with all that being said, let's get into the all 22, and hopefully our producer Brian is ready to put that up. So I will just vamp a little bit as hopefully that gets ready to go. But we want to take a look at two plays this week in regards to this game, and the first play is sort of the missed Austin Hooper throw where Matt Ryan overthrew Hooper, and then if you were watching the game on television, they showed a replay where Julio Jones was wide open on a similar corner route, and basically the sort of conclusion, spoiler alert, that Matt and I did looking at the play, and we'll see sort of get Alan's take on it, is Matt Ryan made the right read. He just made a bad throw on that, missing Hooper on that play. So if we get the opportunity.
Yeah, I made this mistake on Twitter, and that's part of the problem with not having the all 22 when you're watching the games on Sundays. Is I also thought that Julio should have been the option based on that replay of him running free, but as you'll see in the video, which Brian's pulling up now,
Thank you, Brian.
Julio doesn't really come free until Matt kind of releases the ball. So let's take a look at what we see here.
Yeah, basically this play, they're going to line up. They're going to run they're going to motion Julio. He's going to line up in the slot. He's going to run a corner route here. And Hooper's going to run a corner route here. And against the Colts cover 2, that's a great play call to attack that cover 2 because these areas between the deep safety and the underneath corner are soft spots in the zone. And essentially when I run it in a second, you're going to see this linebacker cheat up. And what Matt is going to read is thinking, oh, this guy's about to blitz. And because Devontae Freeman is going to run into the flat, this route in the flat should hold this corner. And so Matt's thinking, okay, this cornerback's going to see Devontae in the flat. He's going to stay up here. So I should have a pretty wide open window to Austin Hooper here. So that's going to be my first read as opposed to Julio, where you don't really necessarily know what these three guys are going to do in terms of traveling with Julio up the field. So I think Matt makes the right decision with Hooper being his first read, but then we come to find out this guy doesn't blitz and he covers this guy. Still the right read, just you got to throw the ball better than that. Anything you want to add, Matt or Alan, to that play?
No, I just think Ryan's ball placement was pretty abysmal. I think the issue was just the fact that he threw such a terrible pick on the previous drive, and just in general, Ryan's made some bad decisions and some poor throws. So I just think based on, 6 interceptions now, that picked up more attention. But, if he was having a fine season or playing up to his standards, I don't think it would have gotten this much heat. So I think it's just a blowback for how poor. I don't even think he's had a bad season. It's just some of the decisions.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2 throws. I mean, you can point to the interception and you can point to this one. So if that's really all you can point to for Ryan in the game, I think that overlooks a bigger issue at hand as far as just the team overall just not being good enough to win. I mean, when you need Matt Ryan to be perfect just to give you an opportunity to win a game, I think that speaks volumes to everyone else's performance. But just the execution was a bit off on this one.
Yeah, that ball should be here, not here, basically. All right, let's go to the fourth quarter. We'll go to basically the play that sealed the win for the Colts, that 3rd and 4 on the final drive where the Falcons sort of needed to get a stop, and they, of course, did not get a stop. And this is, the Colts running some RPO action. I think kind of freezes the Falcons defenders. They run a rub route. Jack Doyle gets wide open off of that rub route. You can see it. Just wanted to run the play fully first so you guys can sort of see it. But basically, they blitz Kamal Ishmael off the edge. I guess, Matt, you can take over if you want to.
Yeah, and I'm curious to get Alan's thoughts on this one because, maybe we'll see it better from the other angle too. But curious the assignments on each of them. I mean, it looks like man across the board, and Rico's kind of that cover one safety, but he's coming down in the box. Is he supposed to be on Doyle? Me and Aaron tend to think so, and the run action of this play, which you'll see if Aaron wants to potentially pause it. So you can kind of see that Rico's kind of leaning to his right a little bit into the backfield, biting on that play fake. And once that kind of happens, the rep is lost. Then the rub action, from the slot receiver totally takes Rico out of the play. And at that point, it's an easy completion from Brissett, which, again, you got to give a tip of the hat to Reich, all throughout the day, giving Brissett easy looks, easy gainers like this. And this was a classic example of it to ice the game. But Alan, did you see anything different as far as, what you think, some of the responsibilities of the players were there as far as Kamal, Rico, KZ?
Well, you just look at pre-snap. Look like everyone's pointing at each other. I don't even think they're properly set, so that's a bit of a concern. But I just think you have to give it to Frank Reich. That's just a really good play call, using that to his advantage. And you just saw it the whole game. A lot of high percentage throws. There wasn't a time where I think maybe there was one play Brissett I think he was trying to get a screen to Marlon Mack that maybe could have been deflected for interception. But other than that, you just saw so many high percentage looks. But I just think you just have to give Reich all the credit here, just because I don't think the Falcons really could set this up. Yeah, maybe Allen should have read it better, given that he's dealt with a lot of QBs in the past run pass options. Look what Cam Newton, obviously, and Allen, given that he plays with such a high IQ, maybe he could recognize it better. But sometimes you just have to give credit to a really good offensive mind. And I think we've seen Frank Reich. He's right up there with the Shanahans, McVays, and Andy Reids of the world, and of course Sean Payton. Please don't lambast me, people.
You're a secret Saints fan. Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
I mean, much like, Aaron, we talked about when we did the All-22 breakdown of the Minnesota game, this is what great execution looks like. This is what, when you coach it up right and the players execute it well, this is what it looks like. Falcons necessarily haven't been doing that, and that's why they've lost some of these games. We'll see what happens against this Tennessee team. I don't think Tennessee, their coaching staff, is the same caliber, as the Zimmers and the Reichs of the world. But again, there's not a whole lot you can do. But again, just tip the cap to them and, say that they were better on that day. And that's what happened on that play and on several other plays throughout the game.
Yeah. So don't have anything else to add to that. I think you're right. Let's get into this Tennessee game. I think we sort of already discussed a little bit in depth the Kamal Ishmael, Keanu Neal thing. This Tennessee team is coming off of 2 straight losses, 1 and 2, like the Falcons. My takeaway from watching the Titans, I've watched, I told Matt before we went on air, I've watched more Titans film than any other team other than the Falcons. But, caveat, I've watched like maybe 4 or 5 quarters of Titans film, so it's not necessarily saying a whole lot there. But, I think my big takeaway is their offense is trash. But their defense is the complete opposite of trash. So my hope is that this is kind of a get-right game for the Falcons, where this Falcons defense can sort of bounce back and be like, get some confidence, get a little bit of boost playing this awful Titans offense. But knowing the Falcons and their defense, you can never really put too much faith and stock in the Falcons defense to play up to their expectations. But I do think this Titans defense is legit, and I think it's going to be tough sledding for this Falcons offense to, move the ball against them. Just because my main concern is, we talked about Jacoby Brissett and sort of the high percentage throws. And for me, watching the film of this Colts game, I thought a lot of the success that the Falcons had in the second half of the game was basically a lot of short dink and dunk, high percentage throws from Matt Ryan. I'd be surprised if he had more than maybe 1 or 2 attempts that traveled more than like 12 yards in the air in the second half of the game. And I don't know if this Titans defense is one that you can just sort of dink and dunk your way and pick apart. And so I do want to see a little bit more, of that play action, taking some shots down the field, which I think we just haven't seen a lot of that from this Falcons offense. Like the one time we saw it in this Colts game was on that drive that led to the Matt Ryan interception. And you saw this offense, come out with a big play to Julio, a big play to Hooper, a couple of solid runs from Freeman, and then, the turnover from Matt Ryan on a poor throw. And like, that's the type of Falcons offense I want to see, like that type of offense every single down or every single series. But we haven't really seen that. And it's been, a lot more RPOs. It's been a lot more dinking and dunking. And I don't know if that's going to be as effective against this Titans defense this week. So that is one of my concerns. And if the Falcons can't protect the football, that's going to be even bigger problem, because you don't want to give a quote unquote trash offense like the Titans more opportunities to score, because that was a big reason why they put up so many points against the Browns, is because they got like 21 points off of turnovers. And had a couple of busted coverages on the Browns' part that led to some big plays. Hopefully the Falcons don't do that, but again, you never know. Alan, sort of what's your outlook on this upcoming game for the Falcons and the Titans?
One thing I want to compare when it comes to Indianapolis and Tennessee, I think Indianapolis' defense, they're just known for obviously playing a lot of zone, but they just keep plays in front. They're pretty vanilla, wouldn't you say?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just keeping plays in front of. I think Tennessee, given how much they invested in their cornerbacks, look at Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, there'll be more man-to-man opportunities. I think just one thing that comes to mind: will Calvin Ridley get more than 2 targets? That's the big question. I think that's a big talking point, because just seeing how disregarded he was at times, because he was getting open on a couple of plays. I don't know what necessarily happened. I know with tight ends going up against the Colts, they get a lot of easy openings, so that's why Hooper was getting targeted quite a bit. But you like to see really get going. Maybe Freeman, who I thought looked like his old self. You saw just those cuts. He was running a lot more violently. He was breaking a couple of tackles. That's what we wanted to see, because first 2 weeks, Freeman, I can't recall him breaking a tackle and making someone miss. So just seeing the trademark Devontae Freeman, just the playmaker, that was probably the biggest high point of looking back on that game. Minus a couple of small things like Alan Bailey, I thought really stood out against the run. But as for this game, I think tackling. I know it sounds like a very vague thing, but we saw, I think before the Indianapolis game, they were like tied for 3rd best in terms of efficient tackling. They got to be like 15th now after that Colts game. It was really bad, and they're going up against someone that knows how to break tackles with the best of them. Derrick Henry is a load, so I think it's going to pretty much come down to tackling and not letting Tennessee do what Indy did. Like those 93, 94-yard drives, they took up so much time in the first half. So just getting off the field, forcing Mariota in 3rd and long situations, and hopefully Claiborne, Beasley, and Tack go to work. And if Jarrett's obviously healthy, he's going to do his thing as well. So it sounds very vague, but just tackle and get Mariota in 3rd and long situations, and I think defense should be fine.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. I'm not as concerned with the defense against the Titans, although those are famous last words when talking about the Falcons oftentimes. I'm concerned with the Titans defense. I think they're one of the better units, one of the more slept on units. I think Rashaan Evans, Jayon Brown is one of the better linebacker duos that doesn't get enough publicity, but I think will in time. I liked what I saw from Freeman. I agree with you, Alan. I thought we saw the trademark Devontae Freeman this past week. I'm not sure if we're going to see that against this Titans defense. We had talked about last week's show that I thought the Colts giving up 124 yards a game on the ground coming in was an opportunity for the run game to get going. I don't think that's the case against Tennessee. Other than Fournette's 69-yard run last week, they only gave up 19 yards on 19 carries. You can't forget about Jarrell Casey. He's since he's been in the league, he's long been one of the most underrated defensive tackles. I think he's going to be a load for who's ever playing, right guard or against James Carpenter, if that's the matchup at times. So I think this is going to be a low scoring game. And that always worries me with the Falcons, because I don't think that favors them, especially when, on the opposite side of the ball, they do have a guy in Derrick Henry that can, bleed the clock and finish a game. So while I'm optimistic that the Falcons can pull this one out, since I don't think the Titans are that good, I do think there's opportunities that they can present a challenge to them. And, as I told Aaron before the show, I don't think the sky's necessarily falling heading into this week, but if they can't take care of business against Tennessee, I think that is reason to panic, especially at home. To fall to 1-3, losing to the Titans, I don't think there's much excuse for it. But those are some of my concerns. But I do think, on the flip side, I was a little shocked. I don't know if you guys saw the offensive line rankings for Pro Football Focus this week. But Tennessee was like 6th or 7th on that list, which, again, surprises me based on, guys like Jamil Douglas getting the start at right guard. But I do think there's an opportunity. I mean, I talked about it when Taylor Lewan was suspended, that I thought this was a great opportunity for Tack McKinley to really get going against Dennis Kelly. But it seems like he's been holding up over there. But any thoughts on the Titans O-line and can the Falcons defensive line actually get after Mariota and force him into the 3rd and long situations that we're talking about? They're so crucial.
What are your thoughts?
Do you think Mariota holds on to the ball for a long time?
I think he's part to blame, and maybe that's where the grades come into play.
I think that's a lot of it. I think, probably a lot of it was the Jaguars blitzing, and maybe they were counting guys missing their blocks in terms of protection there, maybe. But I think
the play calling to it all apart, like as far as not giving, like we saw with Brissett here, giving him easy throws to build the confidence. Have you seen that, Aaron, in your film study with the Titans? As far as
they have easy throws, he's just not
okay.
pulling the trigger on those throws.
Gotcha.
I think that's one of those things, which goes to the whole issue I think a lot of people have with Mariota. It's just like he's just kind of out there, and he'll make a couple of plays with his legs, which does concern me a little bit. Yeah. Given, the Falcons aren't always the most reliable when it comes to mobile quarterbacks. They obviously have the players that it shouldn't be an issue just because of the guys like Deion Jones and Vic Beasley being able to spy and whatnot. But, every now and then, Tyrod Taylor gave him a lot of fits 2 years ago in that regard. And it was really up to Keanu Neal to sort of step in the second half of that game and sort of keep his scrambling in check. So that is a concern. But I think, the main issue I see with Mariota is just like simple reads, wide open windows, on film that I see. He misses a lot of those. He holds onto the ball, takes a lot of sacks, misses some throws. So again, this is a perfect opportunity for this Falcons defense to, get right. But, the long running joke is like, if you're in a slump, play the Falcons and you'll break that slump. So it's one of those things where it's like, everything says that the Falcons, in a low-scoring game, because we have a little bit more confidence in this defense, this should be a game that the Falcons can win, just because this Titans offense is so iffy. But you're right, historically speaking, when the Falcons, fail to eclipse, 20, 24 points or whatever the case may be, they don't win a lot of those games. And I think it's going to be hard for them to get that number against this Titans defense if they don't have, if they're not bringing any new wrinkles to the game plan and get off to a fast start. Because you don't want Jarrell Casey, you don't want Cam Wake, you don't want these guys, pinning their ears back, getting behind in this game and pinning their ears back and get out the quarterback. That was a big reason why Baker Mayfield had so many problems in the first week, because he was just pressured pretty much every single down and was seeing ghosts out there. And you don't want Matt Ryan to have to deal with that if we're talking about him trying to sort of shake these issues, whatever you want to call them, so far in the season with the turnovers and whatnot.
Do you guys think this is a Luke Stalker revenge game?
I mean, this is his former team, and after all the fire that he's gone from Falcons fans on Twitter, it would make for perfect irony. So
you're saying that Luke Stalker's only had 3 good games this year against Tennessee and the 2 against Tampa Bay?
Ryan's gonna hit him down the seam, and Kevin Byard's gonna be right there, and the world's gonna explode. But I do think we're not talking enough about the Tennessee's D-line, just with Wake and Casey, and I think Landry's had a pretty good start. I've always been fascinated by him. And you just want to see if Brown and McGarrett can hold up. I thought they looked good against Indy, but or Schweitzer if he has to play. But I think a guy like Cameron Wake, just still 37 years old, still getting after, especially with his just power. I think he could give McGarrett some problems, because I still think McGarrett could get a little too over aggressive at times. Like, he could be, but just with his pass sets, you can still tell he's a bit raw. So if anyone could give him problems, a crafty veteran like Wake, I could see giving him some fits. And then you got Casey, who is probably one of the more underappreciated defensive linemen in general. Like, I don't know if he's like a poor man's Cam Jordan, but I put him in like that Cam Jordan category where it's like, it doesn't matter where you line him up, wherever you line him up, he's going to create havoc. So he's someone you always have to be accountable for.
Yeah, Cam Wake was cooking Chris Hubbard in that first game.
I like to think Caleb McGarry's better, but
yeah. I like to think that as well. But Cam Wake's got dragon blood in his veins. He's going to be playing football for another 15 years. So, you got the savvy veteran versus the young upstart. So I'm hoping Caleb McGarry holds his own. But obviously, you don't want Cam Wake in situations where he can just basically just be like, you know what, young fella, I'm gonna cook you on these downs because it's 3rd and 10 or whatever the case may be, and your team's down 10 points, and we know you're gonna throw it. So
I was kind of surprised how quiet Justin Houston was. Did he play last week? Like
he did.
That whole Indy pass rush got pretty much shut down.
Teray was the only guy that really stood out to me, and Autry had a couple of nice plays before he got hurt.
Yeah, he forced the holding call on Brown, I think.
Yeah, like that was my biggest positive takeaway. Was I thought we saw strides from the offensive line, especially in pass protection, and hopefully they can carry it forward because I do think it's a tougher task going up against, like you said, Cam Wake, Harold Landry. That's a pretty solid duo. So if they can handle their business there, that's a positive sign moving forward. But yeah, I'm also concerned by them.
Aaron, I'm shocked you're not highlighting Rutgers' finest, Mo Sanu versus Logan Ryan. We gotta admit, Logan Ryan got him in the Super Bowl. I think Sanu had one catch for like 22 yards. It was a nice catch, to be fair, but I don't know how much put stock into the game that we shall never talk about. But
well, and I think this is an opportunity for Ridley and Julio to go off because I think they've had a relatively quiet start this season. And you got Adoree Jackson, you got Malcolm Butler. Ridley versus Butler. We saw what Gabriel did to him in the Super Bowl. Butler's good, but he'll give up a play every now and then. And Adoree Jackson is certainly,
See, I kind of disagree. I think this is more a Sanu game because, if you like you talked about it, this is a low scoring game. This has Sanu written all over it as far as like toughing out every yard, moving the chains, grinder. That doesn't necessarily say Calvin Ridley. I mean, I'd expect Julio Jones to be a factor as he always is, but I think that's more Sanu again. So maybe when Alan asked, are we going to see more than one target with Ridley? I mean, I'm sure we'll see more than one target, but I don't know if he's going to have a bounce back game in this type of atmosphere if what we're saying about the Titans defense plays out.
This is a Sanu game. Words that Aaron will never say.
Yeah.
If we have had some very good games that were Sanu games, so I'm not going to simply dismiss it. But I feel like that's not necessarily playing to the Falcons' strength. I think one of the reasons why Sanu, again, going back to what I said, had some pretty good production last week was because the Falcons were just basically dinking and dunking. And I don't think you can beat a defense of this caliber and move the ball consistently, thinking that you can just put together these 12-play. 75, 80-yard drives against this Titans defense. And again, that would favor a player like Sanu. That favors a guy like Hooper as well. But again, I think you got to get some chunk yardage against this defense.
I mean, I don't disagree. I just think, again, it's not going to always come that easy. They're going to have to grind out some drives and grind out some first downs. And I think that's more Mohamed Sanu's territory than necessarily. I mean, it's not all going to be explosive plays, especially against this defense. I mean, they are who we say they are. Again,
no, that's fair. I'm not sitting here saying that Sanu can't be part of the game plan. I hope we get to see a game where Ridley and Julio sort of combine for 15 targets or something like that, rather than 6 or whatever the number is.
Did we not get that in week 2?
I know, and we won that game, didn't we?
Oh, I will say Adoree Jackson does bite on double moves quite a bit, so I think Ridley could get him. Then I thought Ridley could abuse Trey Waynes, but that didn't quite work out until it was garbage time. But Adoree Jackson does gamble a lot, and we know Malcolm Butler has allowed his fair share of touchdowns. So I do think this matchup 6-point, I think it pretty much comes down to pass protection. I'm not convinced by that O-line.
I would say if there's one weak point I'm going to point out in the Titans defense, I'd say it's the cornerbacks because I like everything else about their defense. I don't necessarily. I think their cornerbacks are.
I like their
gamble.
corners. I don't like them in this matchup because I just think Julio's side, like they don't have a big outside corner. You know, they have smaller, faster guys, and I think Malcolm Butler and Adoree Jackson can't match up with Julio Jones, and I would like to believe that neither one of those guys, you know, they're better suited to match up with a guy like Ridley than Julio. So I feel like one of those two guys should have a favorable matchup on any given down, and hopefully the Falcons devise ways to try to exploit that. But I'm with you.
In terms of Tennessee's, like, do you know much about like their coaching staff these days? Because I know obviously LaFleur is gone. Like, who's Arthur Smith's the offensive coordinator, right? Is he like in-house?
He's been on the Titans staff for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, he kind of came out of nowhere. I was shocked to see that he's a real person, but he is.
Right to when they brought in Robisky to be their offensive coordinator, that obviously did not end well.
Yeah, he was basically their tight ends coach, so he's basically Mike Mularkey, I guess, 2.0.
Right, and I wonder if Mularkey can take a lot from him and help in this matchup at all, because again, he was on his staff, but kind of an uninspiring choice to replace LaFleur, if you ask me.
Yeah, especially given just the whole movement towards younger play callers. Like you look what Dallas is doing with Kellen Moore, and that's why Dirk Cutter, the hiring got so much criticism. It's just like, are you really going to Dirk Cutter? And look, I know the offense was obviously incredible in the second half, but I still think Cutter is not fully utilizing offense. Like, I think they should be running a lot more in the whole huddle. I just thought there was way too many 1st and 10 runs, even 2nd and long they were running.
Yeah, just not enough play action. Yeah,
and then just so many draws at a shotgun. It's just like it got very repetitive. Even though Freeman was very effective, I thought once again Falcons offense being kind of limited because they should have put up 30 against the Colts, and it's part of the reason why they lost. Besides the fact that the defense pretty much got embarrassed.
Yeah. Definitely. So
I will point out under the microscope.
I will point out that Arthur Smith is only 37 years old, which in my book is very young.
He's like Sean McVay, except doesn't have the Ukrainian model wife. But I can't believe he's only 37. I just picture him like some 55-year-old guy.
The name itself, Arthur Smith, does not sound like a young guy's name.
Yeah, it does not. I don't think I know anybody that isn't a cartoon named Arthur under the age of 55.
Aaron, I am fascinated to ask you about one thing because I remember I saw a tweet and I do kind of agree with you. Great. Sorry. So that why do you think Dirk Cutter's play action concepts are bad? Because I haven't really noticed that so far. They aren't great, but I don't think they're noticeably bad. I think there's a lot more worse with the offense than that. I'm a explosive everything. Yeah.
And so I think play action you need to be for shot plays, and I don't think the Falcons have really been utilizing the play action for shot plays. I think they've been utilizing it more sort of as like an addendum, I guess you could say, to their RPO stuff. And so when you see the Falcons go play action, most of the time their run action is you'll see them in shotgun, and Freeman will line up next to Matt Ryan, and he'll do a little fake sort of RPO zone read thing, and pull the ball out and back and then throw like a regular completion. And I don't think that really accomplishes anything. They just run sort of basic routes, and you just got like a little bit of run action. Maybe that holds the linebackers a little bit, but then they throw like an 11-yard pass to Mohamed Sanu as opposed to, dialing up some deep, those Yankee concepts that we saw as a regular part of the Shanahan offense. And when the Strk offense was working, we saw it as a regular part of the Strk offense and whatnot. And so I just feel like they're not really utilizing play action for the reasons that the rest of the league uses play actions, or at least in my opinion, the good offenses use play action. It's just kind of just simple completions and things where you don't really need the play action on that particular play.
That's a good take. Yeah, I remember they were, I think, 6 for 6 on RPOs against the Eagles, but if you remember, they were all pretty, they were like 10-yard passes. I remember I hit Ridley on like a crosser one time. I think the touchdown to Julio in the red zone, that was pretty much kind of a play where Julio just outworked Darby and Ryan had to run out the pocket. But yeah, I think there's definitely more opportunity for big plays. But then again, it's just, I think we need to see more because you look at the Colts defense, you could tell they were pretty much just wanting plays to stay in front of them. The Vikings game, just given how out of hand it went, you can't really take too many shots. And the Eagles, it was just bombs away. But then again, they started running, cover zero. Those 8-man blitzes got pretty overwhelming. So I think just you need to give Cutter a little bit more time. But I do think they need to be more urgent because there's as we know, there's so much talent in this team. And I just think some of the things he's doing, it's already getting repetitive. And it's getting repetitive now when we're in September. What's going to happen by November?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think they averaged 8 yards at an attempt on play action passes against the Eagles, which, usually when you see the play action numbers, the yards per attempt is 10, 11, 12, something up there because of the shot plays. And then you saw, again, as I mentioned before, on that drive that ended in the Ryan interception, the first 2 plays, they ran, play action, sort of traditional play action shot plays, and they got 37 yards. They got a 20-yarder to Hooper and a 17-yarder to Julio, and it was kind of a Yankee concept where they ran Julio on a crosser. They didn't run Sanu deep. He kind of stopped, which, I don't know. But that's me nitpicking. And not Sanu, nitpicking Cutter before anybody accuses you.
There you
go. And then that's what I want to see. I want to see I don't know, half dozen of those types of plays in every game plan, particularly early in these games, because I think that is what you need to sort of spark your offense. And as we saw in that game, and again, maybe you can say it's because of the way the Colts play, but that is what sparked the Falcons offense for the first time last Sunday. They ran those types of plays and it worked, and it flipped the field position and it got in the scoring position. And of course, they turned the ball over, but I think that's really sort of what the Falcons offense needs to be.
So would you say that the success of the offense in the second half against the Colts was, a byproduct of the talent carrying the play calling, or the Colts defense, kind of, playing relaxed because they had a 23 lead, a little bit of both? I mean, I'm getting a little of both vibes as far as what you guys thought. Because I thought the offense, again, going 3 drives, 3 touchdowns, I think that is a positive and momentum builder, hopefully heading into this one. But, again, if it's the talent, carrying the play calling, I don't know how sustainable, that is. And if the coach staff continues to hold them back, we might have more problems on our hands. But what did you guys think of the second half success in that Indianapolis game?
It was definitely a combination of both, just given how the Colts coverages were. But people forget the Falcons had to convert four third and long, especially I think it was in the third quarter. That one drive, they had to convert 3 times on third long. So I think just once again, Julio finding soft openings, or I think Sanu had a pretty nice catch where I think he lined up in the slot. But Colts defense, they are very vanilla. You could just tell they just want to keep plays in front of them, and that's about it. I think even their D corner, that's pretty much their philosophy. They just trust the athlete they have, and not having Darius Leonard definitely didn't help them. So I think it's a product of both, but you have to give credit to Matt Ryan. I thought a couple of passes, especially in the red zone, were on point. That touch on the Julio was beautiful. And then there was one, I think it was on a 3rd and 12, where Julio ran to dig and Ryan hit him over the middle in stride. So there was definitely a couple of throws where I was like, okay, the offense is back, especially Ryan, given that these past few games, just very uncharacteristic play from him.
Yeah, and before I answer, I do want to let people know that we're only going to plan on doing an hour show. So I'm looking at the clock; it's 8:50. So if you guys want to jump in and add your 2 cents to the show, by all means, check out that link.
I hate Mike Smith. Come on.
In the YouTube comments, check that out, and we'll see if we can get a couple of you guys on before 9 o'clock hits. But
one thing I'll add too about that, Aaron, don't feel like you need to show your face or have your video camera on. You can just call in, and if you're too shy and don't want to show your face, we just want to take your calls. We want to hear from you. So if that's what it takes, feel free to turn the camera off and just come on in, chime in, and ask questions and get your thoughts heard on the show.
Absolutely. And you can do it via computer. You can do it via mobile. So, if you're butt naked and eating some Cheerios watching the show, you can just, turn your phone on and just do from the neck up, I guess you could say. But to answer that question before we wait for someone to jump in.
Well, no one's going to jump in after that now. You killed the mood in here.
To answer your question, Matt, I think, I would say I think Alan's right. I think it was a combination. I think the Falcons did good things in the second half. I think they did. They attacked certain coverages that they were running the cover two because the Colts were predominantly basically just playing cover two, and that one deep shot to Julio on the out and up. That I would add that to sort of the list of nitpicks on Matt Ryan's game, just because like there was an opportunity for him to throw a touchdown pass on that, and he underthrew Julio, and he had kind of wait on it. But like again, that's a nitpick. But that was an opportunity for this, to get a big play against the Colts cover one when they used that. So I think they did a good job in the second half. I think I guess my problem is, at least the thing I'm thinking is like, why did it take so long for them to start dialing up some of those plays? And I do think a lot of it was just sort of more dinking and dunking. And taking easy completions and stringing them together. But I think Alan is correct that converting as many third and longs as they did is not something that you can just simply say is luck or anything like that. That takes skill, and but I don't necessarily know if you want to rely on that.
Right.
Can't go 8 for 10 every week.
Yeah, I don't know if you can count on that happening each and every week. So I think you have to find ways to, maximize your first and second down opportunities by moving the chains early. So we're just waiting on.
I guess
somebody.
we got a couple questions on the Twitter handle if you want to go through those while we wait, if and when we ever get a call today. Let me see.
What do we got?
I did not look slander, please,
because I was counting on people to call in.
Yeah, I mean, we had such a good response last week. I thought it would continue today. Okay, so.
All
right.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about Casey. Casey has looked disappointing. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, you're right.
He missed a lot of tackles. Like, I know open field tackling was a problem from last year, but I attested to more of just him trying to adapt to being a safety. But just, I don't know, he missed like 3 tackles against the Colts, and all of them were pretty, I guess, standard tackles you should make.
Yeah, I think he's also been giving up a little bit too much cushion in man coverage and those sorts of things. He hasn't been sort of the lockdown man cover guy that I think a lot of us were hoping with the upgrade from Brian Poole. But it might take some time for him to get going this year.
I can understand him giving Aguilar cushion because Aguilar is a very good route runner. I know his hands are infamously not very good if you hear certain people on the news stations. But against the Colts, even against, who was it, Paris Campbell maybe? I'm just like, this guy's a rookie. Like, we can't man him up. So, yeah, it's been pretty frustrating. Just, I think, given that there was a lot of buzz about him going to the year. But I think we kind of should have expected that was going to be a bit of a process for him because, playing 20 yards down the field to now, you gotta be nickel corner. It's difficult. And in week 1, he barely played because Mike Zimmer is playing 1975 football. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The one point I'll add as far as the defenders go, and I don't know how you guys feel, but I mean, I think you can count more guys that we're probably disappointed with than we can, impress. Like Deion Jones has been Deion Jones. I've been pretty impressed with the 3 down linemen, Davison, Jarrett, and Bailey. And then Trufant, for the most part this season I've been impressed with. Other than that, I mean, a lot of the guys have been iffy. I mean, on the back end, and Campbell's another one, and obviously, you talked about Casey there, but I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on some of the back end players, but there haven't been a lot I've been impressed with.
I think Auburn's making strides.
I think Allen's been lights out. Rico Allen, not Alan Strk. It's been lights out.
He's been good. He has been good.
Yeah, and it's tough with the free safeties because, again, their job is to erase a lot of problems. I mean, obviously, it was highlighted in the Eagles game, the job he did on the back end with communication. But
he almost had a pick in the Colts game, too, where he jumped a slant to, I think, Hilton.
Did he?
I think Oliver broke it up.
No, Eagles game he did.
No, like in this Colts game, Oliver broke up. I think Oliver broke up a touchdown throw to
Hilton.
Yeah. And Allen was like half a step from picking it off.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't notice that. 'Cause that was the Keanu Neal play, unfortunately. So there was so much going on in that moment. But you saw Alvarez that those long arms on full display on that pass.
Yeah, he did.
The way he extended, I was like, whoa. Okay, Dan Quinn, that's his guy. All right. But then of course Oliver, just that play action. It's crazy. Pascal, like the two plays where there's the worst coverage breakdowns, he was the beneficiary of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So someone's talking about Foy Lucan taking a spot. I don't know if you saw Foy Lucan in the open field against, I think it was Hines, but oof,
not good.
He did not even make contact.
Yeah, I thought Oluokun was bad against Minnesota. I thought he was very questionable against the Colts. I think he was good against Philadelphia. So maybe just hot, cold. So maybe this week he'll bounce back.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for someone to ask, will Duke Riley get any reps? That's when you know things are going downhill.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. But looking at the clock, it doesn't look like anybody's jumping in. We sort of vamped for 8 minutes, and no one wants to jump in. So I guess this is the time where we will give Alan the floor to plug whatever he wants to plug before we duck out of here.
You can find me at Alan_Strk. That's ALLEN_STRK. Staying with the usual weekly grind, Monday review piece, Wednesday, or also tonight I'll be breaking down film, and then Friday preview piece. And I also have my own podcast with my boy Nick Deus, Veterans Minimum, that comes out either every Thursday or Friday. So yeah, still staying as busy as usual and covering this Falcons beat, which is always a roller coaster ride. I forget, what did Dave tweet? That's like one of the most infamous tweets. Like the Falcons are a never-ending roller coaster. That
the pin tweet from the Falcoholic.
Yeah, like a roller coaster with a bad safety record, I think.
Yeah, that's couldn't be more accurate, just based on the first 3 weeks. But hey, I think the schedule, given that just the matchups coming up, I think we're getting a lot of fascinating matchups. Maybe not this one, but I think Houston, Arizona coming up. Those are very fun games. So we'll get our entertainment's worth. I don't know if it results in wins, but we'll see a lot of entertainment. That's one thing you could bank on with the Falcons.
Obviously.
That's for sure.
So, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in to this show. Sorry for cutting it a little short after, some epically long episodes the last couple of weeks. But just wanted to keep a tight 60 for this week. And if you guys want to join us for next week's show, call in, whatever you want to do, just watch. Of course, you want to subscribe to the Pro Football Central channel on YouTube. Make sure you hit that bell icon so you know when we go live. Check us out on Falcon Central Radio. I know some of you still are submitting questions on Twitter, and I promised that I would answer those later in the week. Last week, I promise you I will get to those questions later this week, and so you can answer those questions on Falcon Central Radio. We will I guess follow the show on Twitter at Falcons PFC. Follow me at FalcFans. Follow Matt at Matt Caroly, Karoly. You can see the name somewhere on the screen just below us. And check us out at ProFootballCentral.com. You can find all the links to all the audio versions of the show, like Stitcher and Apple Podcasts and whatnot. So, yeah, there you have it, guys.
Boom.